Welcome in, everybody. Making the cut, week 8. We did it. We did it. We're still here. We're alive. I apologize for starting this about 15 minutes late. Various technical difficulties happening in the background. It's thunderstorming in Minnesota. So this almost didn't happen. This almost got canceled, and I was gonna have to issue a whole apology, and I really didn't want to do it. So, but Lance, glad you're with us. Glad the Wi-Fi gods have kicked back online, and uh, yeah, hopefully that your internet stays up for the next like hour, and
Yeah,
then
you can you can
we're
tell
good.
it just kicked back on by my printer finally printing everything that I've been trying to print for the last month. So
Yeah,
that's always
you
fun.
showed up here, and then I started getting Discord messages from you about
Yeah.
how you were running late because of this whole situation, and I'm like, all right, well
Yeah,
that's nice, Discord, thank you, but that's way late. It's a day late and a dollar short, but we're good. We're all here. Internet's on. We're good. Hopefully it stops raining there soon.
it's
A
been
precursor of
all
things to
day.
come, right? As the
Right.
temperature gets colder. Yeah. Same boat. It's been 75 and sunny here for a while,
Hmm.
like all last weekend, yesterday, today. Started getting cold at night, so the trees are turning, but they're saying it's supposed to snow here next weekend, and I'm like, don't tell me that. I'm not prepared for that. I'm not prepared for that yet. I had to turn the heater on for the first time the other day, and it was like depressing, and I'm just like, I'm not ready for this. Like, we're
Pressing because of all the burnt dust that you smell coming out of the vents, right?
yes, that is
There's a
part of it.
particular smell that right when you turn the furnace on is just like, oh,
It's
this
also a smell
sucks.
that never changes, no matter where you live, or if you're in an
Yep.
office or a hotel or at your
Yep.
house. One of those universal smells.
Yeah.
It's the smell of burnt hair and dust, which is
And
really just
everything
skin,
else.
just that's been
Yeah.
collecting in your vents for the last 7 months or whatever. It's all just getting incinerated and blown out into your living room, which is great. It's great. It's really happy visual, that one
Oh
that
yeah.
everyone should think about. But yeah, so I'm glad this is working out though, because I really did not want to have to apologize for this. And we did get some additional people on Sunday asking guillotine questions, so that was nice. Weird that they showed up on Sunday, but that was all. That's interesting. So we got a chance to talk about this a little bit more as well. But yeah, apologize for the technical difficulties. We're going to get right into it. So yeah, as I said last week, close of last week, start of this week, where we're sitting as in this moment in time, we are halfway through the fantasy regular season. So we are chugging along here, and yeah, that's why it's getting colder outside, and time flies when you're having fun. So if you've made it this far, you're halfway home. You just gotta keep it going for a little while longer. Keep in mind that in Guillotine, the last waiver wire run is week 14. They don't let you run waivers for the playoffs, so you get one last waiver run. That's actually when this show will end for the year. Prior to the start of week 14, we'll do our last show that week, because at that point, we have three other shows where we'll set your lineup for you. Show up on Monday, show up on Thursday, show up on Sunday. Like, literally, that's what we do. We'll set your lineup for you. But this is more focused around that type of thing. If there's no waivers and trades to evaluate, it just goes kind of no reason for us to be here. So we're gonna move on. We'll shelve it there. But we're halfway there. It's unbelievable that it's gone that quickly. And the uh no, it'll probably just be our last Tuesday show, Chuck, because we already have Thursday, and which I know you already watch. Like, Thursday, you're gonna have to find something else to watch on Tuesdays for a couple weeks. Is my point, because in all likelihood we'll be down. We'll continue with Monday because that's waivers focused for everyone, not just specific format. Thursday we'll continue all the way through the end of the playoffs because that's roster the people. That's where we're answering questions and setting lineups. And then Sunday, Jason and I will continue to do the final countdown. But this show will conclude everything else, and Friday will continue. And Friday actually continues all the way to the Super Bowl, because y'all degenerates can't get enough. You people, you keep Mason and Vishal very busy over there. So that goes all the way to the end. It's just this show that wraps up a little bit earlier, and who knows? We might have Lance sitting with us on Thursdays. We might do that for the end of the year if he's got Thursdays and he doesn't have to work. We might just have Lance come onto the Thursday show with us, so that way I'm not putting him out of a job. Um, I don't ever do the Monday show. That's Mike Berland. You know, that guy who looks nothing like me, except for he also wears a hat. like Mike Berland is on Mondays with Jason. So no, this is the only show that Lance are on together. In fact, this is Lance's only show with us, which is why I was saying I might have him come and sit in with Jason and myself on Thursdays if he's got the time for 3 weeks, and possible a little bit of an audition there, maybe in the background. Maybe that's kind of what I'm driving at there. For those of you who are playing the home game, so yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So just some housekeeping there. But yeah, if you've made it this far, congratulations, because you're halfway home. A couple more weeks to get through, and you only have one more. There's more buys, but you have one of the big ones is out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So today, the last week was rough, and then you got one more rough one with the buys. But weirdly, this week there are no buys. We talked about this last week, Lance. Did you ever get a chance to look? Have they ever done this before? Because I literally could not for the life of
no,
me.
I totally slipped my mind, but yeah, it strikes me as something that is like out of the ordinary because I feel at least 2 teams usually at least are on bye, but then again,
there's a lot of precedent for that because in week 6, even this year, they have 2 teams on bye, and in week 14 they have 2 teams on bye.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand what we're doing. Confused by all of it. This does repeat in week 13, which is super fun. So as everybody's trying to clinch playoff spots, keep that in mind for the trade deadline. Keep that in mind for everything like that. Trade deadline, by the way, is the next major date on your calendar. That's usually this depends a bit, so you got to bear with me. Trade deadline and guillotine don't matter either because ain't nobody making trades with you. I don't think I've ever seen a guillotine trade. But trade deadline for every other format typically is around week 11. So it's going to depend a little on your specific league, and because every league can set their own trade deadline. You know what I mean? If you're using the default ones, though, typically it's about week 11, right around Thanksgiving. So it's coming up. So that's the next major date on the calendar for the majority of people is the trade deadline. So that's where a lot of this is going to focus, because now is the time where you know who you are at this point. If you haven't won a game yet, or you're 1-6, you aren't hearing my voice right now because you've already moved on for regular formats. If you're 2-5, if you think you're going to push it, now is when you need to start blowing it up. Start blowing it up.
Stranger things happen.
I have too. At 2-5 is where I'm not prepared to quit yet.
Oh no.
Now, if you lose 2 more games, you are well and clear to quit. You are in the clear at that point. If you go to 7 losses, you have my blessing. If you have other stuff to do, move on. Because it's 7-7, you're probably not making the playoffs. It's statistically very unlikely that it's 7-7. If you get to 8, certainly 6-8, you'd have to be playing in a really weird league for that to matter to anybody. But yeah, if you're 2-5, it's really important that you need to start like really evaluating those trades, because you're running out of runway very aggressively. You can only stomach 2 losses down the backstretch, and even then, it's going to be really hard to make the playoffs. If you're, it's really 1 loss. If you're 3-4, it's time to start making critical decisions about, okay, do I think my roster is constructed can go at least 4-3 or better, preferably 5-2 down the backstretch? Why is my team this way? If you're 4-3, you probably want to start looking at like, okay, what can I wallpaper over to try to like make this a little bit better? And if you're better than that, you're looking for real at like, okay, I am constructing my playoff roster. We can start looking at the schedule. We can start looking at some matchup stuff. I want to look at buys. I want to make sure I have all my little lovely bases covered. And you could also theoretically take on a project if you want, which we'll get into. I've been getting a lot of questions about this. Like, for example, if the person rostering James Conner can't wait and you're 6-1, great choice. You can probably get James Conner for half price for what you'd have to pay if you wait 2 more weeks, especially if he's on a bad team. So it's time to start looking at those type of evaluative decisions, being honest with yourself. You have enough data at this point about knowing who you are, and hope is not a strategy. I like to point that out. I say this PSA every year. Hope is not a strategy. That's not a strategy. That's nice, but it's not actually a strategy. That's just doing nothing. So hope is nice. It's nice to live in hope, but hope doesn't do much. You got to actually like do something. So we've been getting a lot of roster resolutions requests. Jason and I and Steve have been handling those in the background. I don't really promote that much on this show, but what the hell, we're here. Roster resolution is a service that you can pay for on our website. It's literally on there on the codes. It's easy to get to. $5. We'll break down your whole team and your whole league. We'll go through your team. We'll go through the league. We'll go through the waiver wires. If you play on Yahoo, I'm sorry, I can't help you. That is not my choice. That is to do with the settings on Yahoo. Yahoo doesn't play nice in the sandbox. My greater advice is stop playing on Yahoo. At least move to ESPN. It's not great, but it's better than Yahoo. My fantasy league, I would argue, is better than anything is better than Yahoo. The old method from the 80s of cutting out newspaper clippings and mailing them to each other and doing the score on a spreadsheet would be better than Yahoo. I just dated the living crap out of myself with that statement, by the way, because nobody even knows what I'm talking about. You got to be damn near 40 to even have any clue what I'm talking about. So a newspaper is this thing that physically got delivered to your house that had news in it. I know, weird concept, but a pen is a thing that you used to use to actually write down physically the scores and transcribe them. It's a whole thing. Ask your
And
parents.
do real math.
Ask your parents. They'll explain it to you. Ask your parents. They can explain it to you. But
is now a bad time to say I have 4 leagues on Yahoo?
You and Chuck are both banned. All banned. Everyone's banned. That's fine. That's fine. Y'all can keep playing on Yahoo if you want. A lot of people are still on Yahoo because that's just when they started. The league started on Yahoo, so it persists on Yahoo. It never gets moved. I get why moving it is a pain. Sleeper makes that really easy, though. We did transition a league from ESPN to Sleeper last year, and it was a really smooth process. Got a little bit of complaining in the beginning, but after a year on there, nobody wants to go back.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the one thing I will say is people fight this, but then once you get them on Sleeper and you show them the app on their phone that actually works well, it's like, oh, we should have done this like 5 years ago. Well, I was like, yeah, probably. Like, so no, I get it. Some people are very loyal to Yahoo. I mean, you're wrong. For the love of God, you're wrong. But I get it. Like, it's just an opinion. It's fine. As I have to frequently remind people at my day job, everybody is entitled to their wrong opinion. But it's because this is America. I've alienated everyone here today.
Amen.
All right, fine. Well, Chuck, talk.
Gotta go with what works.
All right, y'all are crazy. Y'all are nuts. I can't.
So what's better about, like, what makes Yahoo so inferior to, say, like, Sleeper? What are people getting out of Sleeper that they're not getting out of Yahoo?
The updated UI makes a huge difference. They haven't updated the Yahoo UI in a long time. Yahoo also in the background basically locks it up like Fort Knox, if I could talk. It doesn't work great, like trying for me or any of our other people to like backdoor into your account. Not your account, but even your league. Like in Sleeper and in other formats, they have like companion apps that I could use to actually like look at your league without you having to send me 900 screenshots. So there's that component of it. That's specific to my problem with roster resolution, by the way. That has nothing to do with the general merits of one versus the other. Pursuant to the actual topic of merits of one versus the other, the Yahoo app does not work properly. Never has. It was an afterthought that got added in the background. We played on there. I had nothing but complaints about people trying to blindly figure out this app. The Sleeper app works a lot better because Sleeper was actually designed as an app and they made a website later. So the app on your phone is rock solid. It has all the information you could ever need right at your fingertips. Their analytics are better. Their projections are more accurate. The whole user experience is cleaner. It's easier to log waiver claims. It's easier to check the standings. It's easier to offer trades. They offer draft pick trading, which Yahoo has fought forever. We've always had to do that manually in the background. Sleeper builds that functionality in. So if you want to offer draft pick trading in your redraft league to make it a keeper league, you can do that literally right on the app in Sleeper. No custom anything outside of Sleeper necessary. So you can literally do anything you want to do on Sleeper. They have the most robust rule sets. And I'm not paid by Sleeper. I want to point this out because it's starting to sound like I'm a paid shill for Sleeper. I am not. I just like it. And it's because you get all the customization options that you would get with like a My Fantasy League, a really expensive pay site, for free. And they're making money also because they offer like other games and betting services and crap like that on Sleeper that I don't even really get into. I'm talking about purely for fantasy purposes. So if you want like to do the most robust custom rule sets, Sleeper kind of has it at this point. The app works the best. The website also works great. It's just the best compromise. It's just the most rock solid, robust. It does everything well. There isn't really anything that it doesn't do well. Whereas ESPN, Yahoo, NFL.com, CBS, they all still have flaws. Like they all work to varying extents, but Sleeper is the best all rounder, where there's no real weakness to it. And also they make importing leagues really easy, moving stuff over. Oh my god, a real question? That's funny. Um, what do we think about Taysom and tight end premium? Oh my god, it's a tight end premium question. I get like maybe one of these every 2 years. Uh, I don't really care about the Olave thing as it relates to Taysom Hill.
Mm.
I acknowledge that you probably aren't getting suspended for that. The funniest part of that whole thing is when he said that he told the cop he played for the Saints. The cop's like, and gave him a ticket, and
Yeah,
gave him a ticket
yeah.
and arrested him anyway. Like that was my favorite.
That
Uh,
was probably one of the funniest things from that entire video.
yeah, that was super brutal. You could tell Olave didn't
And
like that response. And still getting arrested. So, uh, so the thing that about Taysom and tight end premium is he was already moving up anyway. I would need
Mhm.
to know who you're gonna like start him over or drop to acquire him, but he's definitely worth the ad, especially in TE premium. The bigger issue is Juwan Johnson
Looks like
can't
he's
stay
coming
healthy.
back.
Well, he's coming back, but he still can't stay healthy anyway.
Yeah. No, he's had some problems over the past couple years, but they're Saints offense is just murky right now. Aside from Derek Carr throwing to Alvin Kamara, it seems like you can't really count on anything else. Like that's pretty much it.
He
He's
goes to
gonna throw him
they still do the Michael Thomas stuff in the red zone and in the
occasionally.
green zone. You still see some of that, but yeah, it's the Alvin Kamara show.
Yeah.
We were going through the targets for that or whatever, and it's like he's on pace for like 150 targets or something stupid. It's probably more than that. He's played like 3
Hmm.
games.
Yeah.
Just this idiotic number that is not even remotely sustainable. You die. You'd also set the record comfortably for most receptions by a running back if he was to continue at that pace. So you can lock that in. I agree with that. Olave, it is what it is. He's still
Hmm.
being targeted at an elite level,
Yeah.
and I don't think he's going to get suspended. But Taysom and tight end premium is interesting anyway, just because Juwan Johnson can't stay healthy, and Taysom he plays tight end, but it's tight end. He's kind of playing like everything. Runs the wildcat, gets carries. Um, oh, you're playing Goddard? Yeah, I'm not benching Goddard for Taysom Hill. So really, you're asking me like, what backup tight end do I want? Do you mean Nico Collins? Because I can't imagine you're going to drop Nico Collins for.
Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I can't imagine that would even be the
Yeah.
worst player on your team, unless you play in a 10-team league, and then maybe I suppose. But can't imagine any universe where you're going to be dropping uh, Nico Collins to pick up Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill has value to a point, but especially in tight end premium, but not more so than Nico Collins.
Hmm.
Um, who would I be dropping? I'm pulling up my rankings. Bear with me. I would be dropping, like, if you're talking about other tight ends, like anything like Luke Musgrave could go, David Njoku, Tyler Higbee, Hunter Henry, Trey McBride, Gerald Everett, Michael Mayer, Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet's about the line. I would consider Taysom Hill to be. He's a tight end one in that league, in a TE premium league, but he's really not going to be better than about 8 or 9. Oh, you mean starting Taysom Hill over Nico Collins? I see what you're doing there. In a tight end premium, might have to look see where do I have? No, because I have Nico Collins as a top 20 play this week. And granted, that's PPR, not tight end
Hmm.
premium. But I don't do rankings in tight end premium. Sorry, I already do. I already do PPR, half PPR, and standard, dude. I'm not doing a fourth set of rankings. Thank God for Fantasy Pros allowing for me to have a calculator that makes some of those adjustments for me anyway. Because my God, trying to do that 4 times, I already spend way too much time on it. No, what I would do is I would probably be playing Nico Collins. I have Nico Collins as a top 20 wide receiver play this week because they're playing Carolina. Anybody
Yeah,
against Carolina.
they're coming off the bye. They're gonna be set. So yeah, you you're getting more upside from Nico Collins, and you could. I mean, Taysom Hill's gonna have some good weeks, but I think if you really try to pigeonhole yourself into that, you're gonna probably end up getting burned by it. So yeah, I'd go with Collins too.
Yeah. Have I mentioned that looking at the schedule that I'm greatly annoyed? Isn't the Thursday night game Bills Bucks?
Yeah, and I feel like the Bills are gonna almost lose that game, and
So
then
aggravating.
yeah, it's just gonna be a crapshoot.
So many good fantasy options in that game that are going to be ruined
Hmm.
by having to play on Thursday night. Ugh, icky. Do not like. Alrighty. The all right. So let's do this. Let's go through it because we'll do standard waivers first, and then we'll talk about guillotine. But quarterback, I'll go quickly because it's a lot of the same names, honestly. So if you're looking for like streaming options this week, you don't really need streaming options. So you're really more looking at like the future, especially if you're a good team and you can afford to wait for stuff. I think weirdly the number one claim this week is probably Kyler Murray
Hmm.
because they're coming at quarterback. By the way, not all in. I mean at quarterback, but for quarterbacks, I think it's Kyler Murray would be the number one claim. The reason being they're finally looking like getting ready to activate him. I don't know that he's going to play in week 9, but I think by week 10 there's a very real chance that he'll be starting. That's also the fun fact, the same week that they're projecting Connor to come back.
Yeah,
So for week 10 you might have Murray and Connor. I was actually dubious as to whether or not Kyler Murray would play this year at all. But
I think yeah, a lot of people kind
well
of
they have to
help.
showcase him if they're going to trade him. So but I don't know if that's going to happen because the only reason they would do that is if they realistically thought they could get the 1 pick. Because if you don't have the 1 pick, there's no point in this little exercise. You probably just stay with Kyler Murray. There's nobody else good enough that it would be worth it to drop them all. So that's my number one. Number 2 is Derek Carr. My God, it's ugly, but it tends to wind up with a decent number at the end of it. Uh, and then number 3 is Gardner Minshew. I'm not expecting a 30-point performance from Gardner Minshew where he runs in 2 touchdowns every week, but we talked about this last week on last Tuesday, Lance, and I know you were talking about, you know, Gardner Minshew as like a streaming option basically the rest of the way at this point. So uh, he showed you why. So what do you think? Where do you kind of wind up on some of this?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it. I mean, all three of those are my top three options in the exact same order. The
Oh, okay. I was
only
curious if you would move Minshew up, or not.
no,
I don't know if you Minshew over Carr. I figured Kyler is its whole separate thing, but
Minshew had a better week, but that's it's a roller coaster with him. One week it's up, another week it's down, and when it's down, it's bad. It's bad enough where it can potentially lose you weeks. So There's a lot of risk with that. There's, reward, but it's a fine line to walk. The other option, who again, risk reward, still going to be banging the drum for Mac Jones. I mean, he had a decent week. I get it was against the Raiders, but you know, there's no way that the Patriots offense can be that bad for the entire year.
Oh, I disagree. I think there's every chance it could be.
I mean,
I disagree completely. I think there's every chance that it could be that bad for the remainder of the year. In fact, I am kind of concerned about that. That's kind of where we are here. So
yeah, I like their matchups going forward, though. I mean, you got Miami, you got Washington. That's going to be probably a tough matchup, and then you got Indy. I mean, I think there's a decent chance that he kind of. I don't think he'll turn it around into his first year where he was a alternate Pro Bowler, I think, but he at least has a chance to make it serviceable. And I think if you're going for the fourth waiver wire option of quarterback in week 7, week 8, yeah, you're looking for serviceable. You're not looking for a league winner, and I think that's what Mac Jones can provide you. I still believe he's got, a couple years of starting ahead of him. It's looked bad this year, but let's face it, the Patriots as a whole have looked bad. So,
all right. I won't be doing that. I'm not going there with you. If I was looking for flyers on guys, I would be still looking more in the. I know he had a bad game, so it's not a great example, but the Sam Howells of the world and the Bryce Youngs of the world, that type of
Sam
thing.
Howell, if he's available, I definitely wouldn't be opposed to that. Is
Yeah, the
he?
problem is he's taking too many sacks. Their O line is really bad.
Yeah.
And I don't normally sit here and fire coaches unless that coach is Ron Rivera, in which case get him out. You don't need to know anything more about Ron Rivera. Just watch some of the press conferences, and you'll learn everything you need to know about Ron Rivera just by listening to him talk. Most people will tell you who they are if you just listen to him, and he does a really nice job of that. He is basically the embodiment of that little expression. Let's talk about guillotine. If we're talking about guillotine, I mean, you got everybody playing this week. If Jared Goff killed somebody, go pick that up. Because there ain't no way he's putting up a 9 every week. He was QB5 going into that game, and then he had his worst game of the year. And I am not a Jared Goff apologist. My greater point is they play nobody down the back half. That was their toughest game, basically for the season. If you go through the Lions' upcoming schedule, they do not play anyone that you are afraid of. Like this week, they're playing the Raiders. Anybody seen the Raiders play recently? Yeah, it's
Awful.
bad. It's really bad. They play the Raiders, the Chargers, Bears, Packers, Saints, Bears again, Broncos, Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings. What in there are you afraid of? What is scary? So no, Jared Goff is one that if he killed somebody in your guillotine league, or if this is also a little nugget for trades, because he was nobody's QB1, so he's probably somebody's backup quarterback. Jared Goff, you just heard me rattle off the schedule. Just file that away. Something to know about. That schedule. Holy cow, man! Like that schedule does not get much easier than that schedule. They're gonna have a much harder road next year, given the record they're probably gonna have with that. So I look at Goff. He was the highest rated one that kind of jumped off the page at me because everybody else probably didn't get their manager chopped, but Goff might have.
Here's an
And
interesting one that
yeah, what's an interesting one?
-1. Deshaun or at least -1 in one of the leagues I have, but Deshaun Watson.
No, he was
Would
-1 in a
you
lot of leagues. I know where you're going here, or at least I think I know where you're going.
would you bid on him? And if so,
No,
how much would you? Okay.
no, and 0.
Mm-hmm.
I have no interest in Deshaun Watson. I've never been much of a Deshaun Watson fan.
Mm-hmm.
and don't play fantasy football with your morals.
Yeah.
That's not really the way to win. But I will say, even when he was healthy and with the Texans, he's never really been my cup of tea.
Hmm.
He doesn't run enough for me to really super move him up. I get it. He throws a lot of touchdowns historically. Um, but I would probably leave him where he is, because by now, if he was your starting quarterback in a guillotine, he's killed you by now. Or
And potentially someone else.
you're looking at backups at that point.
Yeah.
And I have many other backups that I would rather deal with, because
Hmm.
you don't have a deep bench in guillotine, as we know. So you got to be very selective about what you do. So if I've got a good team and I want to roster 2 quarterbacks for the stretch, I'm not wasting a spot on Deshaun Watson at that point. I would probably be trying to save some money up to wait for somebody who had a decent quarterback to get clipped, and then try to pull that over the finish line. There's just too many names on this list. I don't want to deal with the headache. What would you do? It sounds like you're thinking about putting a bid down.
No, I just he's right on that tier, a quarterback. Because I mean, there were some other quarterbacks who had a tough week this week who are definitely
Sure, Sam
rated
Howell might have got
above him, but
Sam Howell
he's
might have got you killed. He had a terrible week.
well, I mean,
Matthew Stafford is even higher rated than that. He had a
Tua
terrible week.
had a rough week. Justin Herbert,
Tua had a rough week
Purdy.
by Tua standards. How bad was? I'm gonna double check it while we're talking here.
I got
Purdy. I
13
heard you say
right
Purdy.
here,
Yeah.
but that could be
Let me look.
216 yards, one TD, one interception, -3 rushing yards.
Yeah, it's 11 points. It's not great.
Yeah. So, Purdy, Stafford, Wilson, and yeah, Deshaun Watson was kind of the bottom of that line where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I think that's probably where I'm willing to draw the line and say, you know what, I'll let him be someone else's headache. I
Do you want me
I
to rank
just
rank that for you? Because I can do that. Tua would
I
be
mean,
one.
Tua
If
would be
Tua
number
killed you,
one.
Tua would be one, and I would make a bid on Tua, because duh.
Yeah.
That's going to be really expensive, so it depends on how badly I need a quarterback.
Hmm.
Tua would be one.
Probably
Purdy would
Herbert.
be two.
Okay.
Uh, and then Stafford is three. Wilson would be four. Howell would be five. And then I think that's where I'd cut it.
Hmm.
And Howell, even by the way, would be more of a streamer than he would be something I'm looking at as like a true QB2.
Right.
Did I miss anyone?
Herbert was someone,
Oh,
but I think he would probably be right after
Herbert would be right after Tua.
Tua.
He'd
Yeah.
be two. It would be.
Oh,
It would be. I forgot about Herbert. He'd be two. Although I will say I'm starting to get nervous about Herbert, and I don't think it's actually
yeah.
Herbert's fault. I don't
No,
think it's Herbert's
it's
fault. I think it's the coaching. I think the coaching is not helping. I think the fact that they're getting nothing. They're getting a little bit out of Josh Palmer, which is nice, but Eckler doesn't look fully healthy. They're not using Eckler correctly either, by the way.
no, they've
They're not
totally
using
gone away
Eckler
from that.
correctly. He doesn't look healthy, which is probably part of why they're not using him the way that they should be. Who knows? But yeah, Eckler's terrifying, and all of it is combining to kill Herbert. The O line, it's just I like working with this is like the only time I don't work with a Chargers fan. The Chargers for real. Their O line is brutal. It's bad. An O line is really brutal. Eckler is a shell of himself right now, and they're not using him right anyway. Josh Palmer has been playing fine, but he ain't. As we know, he's not really Mike Williams. They're getting nothing out of Quentin Johnson whatsoever. So you can't establish a running game properly. Gerald Everett is now hurt, so you lost your starting tight end. Just add it to the list. We're getting to that time of year where all the Chargers just get hurt en masse, and I'm just looking at this team, and it's like, this is the problem that you guys have. You don't have a proper core and medical staff, and you can't seem to get these guys back healthy. All of it's translating to I'm watching Herbert look like he's got the yips in the pocket. He looks scared. And to be fair, I would be scared too when they can't protect your blind side. It's what I've watched happen to Justin Fields. He looks terrified. He can't make a decision. He can't get through his reads because he's constantly worried that he's going to get hit from behind. And that's what I'm watching happen with Herbert. Herbert gets the ball. He starts patting it, readjusting, doesn't look comfortable. And then when he does make a quick decision to throw to Keenan Allen, typically, I see him overthrow Keenan Allen. So he's the one that's like, yeah, it's Herbert, and I get it. But he's making me nervous. He's making me nervous. I wouldn't. I'd put a decent chunk of change down on Tua. I'd put like $70 down on Tua if I had it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I would probably not put $70 down on Herbert. I think for that, I would have to be really, really, really desperate for a quarterback
I'd probably
because he,
put 30, and I would probably second guess it the second I hit
yeah,
submit.
Herbert is like a high end backup, low end starter. I will say he's going to make
Mhm.
me eat those words because they're playing Chicago this week, but he's not playing Chicago every week. Okay.
No, you can have some wonderful games. There's no doubt about that. But it's just it's the consistency with it. Kind of like the same thing with Gardner Minshew. He's obviously not Gardner Minshew, but it just comes down to the consistency of which Herbert are you getting week in, week out, and a lot of it, like you said, depends on the surrounding pieces around him. It's not his fault at all. It's
I don't
all
think he's
the
suddenly
dysfunction.
Yeah, I don't think he's suddenly forgotten how to play football. There's a reason that Brandon Staley, if you look at the Vegas odds for first coach to be fired, Brandon Staley is now taking over the top spot in that particular pool. It's 2-1.
You steal that
Is
from
what they're.
Eberflus?
Yep, he stole it from Eberflus. Eberflus is paying 5-2, so
Hey,
Eberflus is
man.
still in the top three. No,
The small wins.
it's Staley at 2-1. I feel like I'm doing the Friday show. It's Staley 2-1. It's Ron Rivera at 5-1,
Mm.
and then it's Eberflus at 5-2
Mm.
because Eberflus won. Also, Ron Rivera, I get it. That's a large part of the reason that man still was employed was because the previous regime needed a guy that was good at keeping the team together while everything was burning down in the front office and not letting them get distracted by that. And I will say, Ron Rivera was pretty good at that. Pretty
No,
good at that job.
yeah.
Actually coaching the games and knowing what the score is and calling timeouts and all that. No, not really that great at all that stuff. Pretty good though at being a locker room guy. People like him. I wouldn't say I don't dislike Ron Rivera because he seems like a bad person. I just like Ron Rivera because he annoys the crap out of me when I watch him try to like do stuff in a football game, and I'm like, what are you doing? That's more the reason that I get annoyed with him. All right, let's talk running back. Unless you have any final things you want to talk about QB related, but I think running back's probably a little bit of a deeper topic.
Yeah, puts a nice bow on it.
Yeah, running back is interesting. So we'll do normal waivers first. Just after everybody dropped him, Amari DiMercario.
Obviously.
Amari DiMercado. I keep doing that. I want to call him Amario DiMercario. Okay? Sue me. Sue me. I don't care. Like, I see that name and I'm like, oh, it's Amario DiMercario. I know that's not the right name. My brain won't tolerate that. But Amari DiMercado, the just after everybody went out and picked him up, dropped him, said a bunch of swears. Well, guess what? They gave him the entire job on Sunday, just as a giant middle finger to everyone in the universe. The problem with this is that we've really only got like 2 more weeks of this asinine nonsense that we're talking about here. But if you're desperate at running back, once again, right near the top. We could debate about the order of this, by the way, because it's going to get into some personal preference stuff a little bit in the background. I'm going to warn everybody. Because I could also make the argument for Darrell Henderson being number 1. I could easily make that argument. So it's just a question of like what do you want to live with at a certain point? I would argue Amari should be 1 because he went in 3 weeks. He's had 2 weeks where he's had the job all to himself. Then he had 1 week where he functionally didn't play. Henderson did some stuff, but he spent a lot of time pass blocking. And he's sharing with Royce Freeman. I just didn't. None of that looked very attractive to me. Did you get a good sense of the Rams backfield, Lance? Did anything stand out to you about that experiment?
It must have been right after we got done with our show last Tuesday or the next day where I saw the Sean McVay press conference where after we had got done talking about Zach Evans, all of a sudden I see Darrell Henderson trending, and then you see Sean McVay talking about him, and you could just tell like ironically, there is a factor and an element of trust there that he kept on going back to, which in his past time with the Rams, that was the one issue that kept him from playing. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're bringing in Darrell Henderson. This is a guy we trust. He knows a lot of things. He can pick up a lot quickly.
Right.
Um, I definitely think he's going to be the one to lean on. I know Royce Freeman is still getting, some of the workload, and that takes away from him. But, yeah, he is pass blocking when he's in there, but that also shows that they're keeping him out there through those plays, which
Yeah.
equates to more playing time. So I definitely have a lot more faith in Darrell Henderson, Mario De Macario, or as you
I'm
see
gonna
now
get
you
that
got,
to stick.
yeah,
I'm gonna
you
get
got
that to
it.
stick. Somebody's gonna get. I'm gonna get that to stick, like in a general way, like on Twitter or something.
It already has. So,
It
but
rhymes and it just rolls right off the tongue. Like,
but for me, it's like, yes, there's been 2 weeks of him doing really well, and then there's been 1 week of dud, and then there was 1 week of Keontae Ingram doing decent, and then he was a dud.
literally got
For
zeros across
me,
the board. Keontae Ingram did, by the way, for the listening audience.
yeah, he
Straight
didn't get a
zeros.
snap. Didn't
Didn't get
get
a
a
snap.
snap.
I can't figure it out.
I
It's
and
maddening.
and that's the thing is I'm willing to let that be someone else's headache. I want nothing to do with that until James Conner's back.
Okay.
Talk
I
to me when
respect
James
that. I
Conner's back
respect that approach. I truly
because
respect that approach. Like, as
unless
somebody who's
you're
who's in that headache, it's not fun.
no, unless you're break the glass, I need an emergency because my starter just got inactivated an hour before kickoff and no one else is available, then yes, break the glass. Mari DiMacario, get him, start him, do what you got to do. But until that point, I am not willing to go that far
You
in
still
there.
got the last name wrong. You tried to stop it. You called him
I'm
Demacario.
trying, but
It's tough. See, I've polluted everyone now. Everyone around me, I've polluted with that stupid. I got people doing that on Thursdays too. Where I'm like, no, once you hear it, it just gets in there. He
it's
should change
stuck.
his name. It's a better name. I mean, I get why he wouldn't because he's not a cartoon character. But like, okay, so that's why I'm saying, like, if you want to order that differently, I don't really
Hmm.
care between the first. But I think those are the top two. The third one is Tajay Spears because I have to keep bringing this up. I'm
Yeah.
contractually obligated. His percentages all went down because they had the bye. But now with Malik Willis and possibly Will Levis alternating like college quarterback style, I have no idea if that's even going to happen. I want no part of it. You'll notice we did the whole quarterback section and I never mentioned it. That's how little I care. It basically means that all I want on Tennessee, though, is I don't even know if you could start Hopkins with that happening at quarterback. I mean, I would be crapping myself if I was thinking about playing Hopkins. What is that? It dramatically increases the running back production stuff for me. So Spears was already, in my mind, a must roster in the league. He should be at any league where Derrick Henry is rostered. Spears should also be rostered. It's just the way that it is. Whether you roster Henry yourself or not. And because they had the bye, Spears' rostership percentages dropped. So he's back under 40.
Well, and they just traded away, the Titans did, Kevin Byard to, again, the Eagles, because
Yeah.
last time they traded a player away to the Eagles, it worked out for them so well.
Right.
So,
They don't learn the
potentially,
lessons. The Titans don't learn the
no,
lessons of history.
no.
What are you new? That doesn't
um,
happen.
but yeah, I mean, that could easily signal that they're just a trade for Henry could be not as far-fetched as everyone kind of thinks.
You
So,
got a week to work
Spears,
that out. You got about a week to
yes,
work that out in the real
Spears'
NFL.
value could skyrocket. So, if you got an open roster spot, I would definitely recommend taking him, holding on to him. He becomes a starter. At least hear some offers from other people
Yeah,
because
I would
people are going to
definitely
go
be.
nuts.
Yeah, because he could very easily be the starting running back in Tennessee, even with the Henry thing. Henry
Hmm.
gets hurt, same problem. His value goes up. So no, he should be rostered in a lot more leagues. And then uh, the other ones are a little less critical. But if you're desperate and you need something, Pierre Strong could do something. But I
Yeah,
don't love it.
no.
That's why I'm looking at it the way I am, where it's like, okay. So don't get too excited about Pierre Strong, but it is worth looking at if you're desperate at running back because Kareem Hunt has been doing a lot more, but you got 2 weeks with no Ford. So if you need a band-aid, I've seen worse band-aids than that. A little lower, Elijah Mitchell. This is an interesting one because even when Mason had the good game the week prior, McCaffrey plays, Mitchell's still the backup. So the 49ers haven't changed anything. The pecking order is still the same. CMC does everything. Elijah Mitchell is the true backup. Mason only matters if one of those two people gets hurt. And if something was to happen to CMC, I think we know pretty well it'd be a committee between Mitchell and Mason. And they're just going to go with whoever's healthier between the two of those. So Mitchell becomes interesting, but it's not something I feel less strongly about. And then really beyond that, you're just talking about like weird dart throws beyond that. Like I'm not interested in rostering Royce Freeman. Um, I'll let you talk about Justice Hill. I've lost my ability to talk about that. Uh, Zach Charbonnet, if I'm rostering Ken Walker, is a thing I want, either off waivers or possibly for something very, very, very inexpensive from someone else. This is where if I'm looking at being a playoff team, I'm interested in Zach Charbonnet, particularly if you have like an IR slot. He missed last week's game. I acknowledge that, but it was only like a 1 week injury. He should be back. And then the final one is Kenny Gainwell. He's getting completely crushed by Swift, but Kenny Gainwell, we saw it. If something does, God forbid, happen to Swift, knock wood, because I roster a lot of Swift. Um, if something did happen to Swift, Kenny Gainwell would be a usage monster. He would be an utter monster in that offense. What are they going to do? They're going to let Rashad Penny touch the football? Slay me. So yeah, that's kind of the way I see it. It's actually like it's not as much of a train wreck as it has been. It's been getting a little bit better. Still bad. But there's a little bit more out there on waivers than what people I think want to give credit to. Especially because now is the time where it's like, nah, let's start some of these like prospects that I'm not going to need anymore. They can go because I need to start building my playoff roster at this point, getting closer to that reality. Like, do I really need Antonio Gibson? I mean, I acknowledge Antonio Gibson probably has value to someone, but like, if you're a playoff team and you're not playing Gibson, which you're probably not, would you rather have him or do you need like proper handcuffs and things like that at that point? It's just a decision you need to make. Depends what the handcuff is. Like, if I've got Henry and I need to create a roster spot for Spears, yeah, goodbye, Antonio Gibson. I don't need you anymore. Like, thank you for your service, but we're good. Like, I need Spears way more. Like, it's that type of thing. So, Lance, how do you have it for kind of traditional waivers here?
Like I said, I definitely have Daryl Henderson number one. Number two, obviously Tajay Spears. Uh,
This is
After
where it gets
that, it kind of
this is
gets
where it starts getting
murky.
into opinions.
Um, I everything in me wants to say Justice Hill, but here we just had a perfect game script where he could have gotten some garbage time yards, and instead they gave him 4 rushing attempts.
And they
So
gave all the garbage, that juicy garbage time to Gus Edwards.
yeah, so I'm gonna pause on that. I'm gonna throw
I
out an
played Gus Edwards in a league where I had no other
yeah.
choice and was cackling laughing all morning. I was expecting like a 6. And I'm just like, yeah, just keep giving it to Gus Edwards. That's fine. I don't care. Like, Yeah, throw a dump off to Gus Edwards for the first time in 3 years, and he takes it 80 yards. That's fine. Sure. You couldn't have timed that any better. It was just it was a matter of like I had to do this. I didn't have any other choices because everyone else is hurt or on bye. And I'm like, well, I have 2 healthy running backs on this team. This is what's happening. We're just gonna hope for the best. And he caught that 80-yard pass. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, but yeah, I saw they were trying to get Hill going early in that game, and they just
Mhm.
couldn't really.
Yeah.
He wasn't what I would call playing poorly, but he wasn't really like blowing you away with anything he
No.
was doing. Whereas Gus Edwards was averaging like 5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
I could see why they kept giving it to him because he just kept tearing them a new one. And then the 80-yard catch and run on the stupid broken screen was. But honestly, you got to like throw that game out, right? You agree that I'm throwing that game out for the Lions, basically for both teams. Like that game is kind of getting put off to the side because the Lions got punched in the mouth. As Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan. Got until they get punched in the mouth, and that's what happened in that game. They got punched in the mouth and they didn't know what to do. And they started just swinging. The bigger takeaway for me is not that the Lions are suddenly like horrible. No, the Lions are about as good as I thought they'd be. The Ravens defense is for real.
Mhm.
That's a real defense that does real stuff. That is gonna like that defense when it's healthy. That's scary playoff defense. Like that's a division winning defense right there. Like forget the stupid loss to the Steelers for no reason. If that defense is going to play like that, they are going to the playoffs. Anyway, I'm sorry. I've derailed us from talking about the real topic, which was Justice Hill and his kind of weird expanded role, but also not weird day for him. I wasn't sure if you were going to
Yeah.
triple down it. When you went back to the well on Mac Jones, I'm like, oh, well, he's just going to play the greatest hits for me tonight. So I'm a little surprised that we're not going back to the well on Justice Hill immediately here.
No, I'll take the week off from that one, especially after what we've seen. I
Get
mean,
back to it
I'll
next week.
yeah, probably. But Ezekiel Elliott has essentially he's turned that backfield into the one episode of The Office where both I think it was Dwight and Jim became co-managers. That's kind of what he's doing to this New England
I
backfield.
haven't thought about that since
Ezekiel Elliott has
2009, but okay, I do
held
know what you're talking about.
Ramondre Stevenson as a co-lead of this backfield right now, and he's not getting any of the passing yards. But if he can fall in the end zone like he's done the past couple weeks, it at least gives you something serviceable off the. You're getting it off the waiver wire. You're not drafting him early on. You're getting it off the waiver wire. So I get it. He's not a league winner, but he's giving you something that, I mean, he got 11 attempts this past game. For 3 weeks now, Ramondre Stevenson hasn't had over 10 carries.
Yeah,
So
but I
it's
would argue
it's
that it's actually
it's
helping Ramondre Stevenson because he doesn't have to do everything by himself anymore. Since they've started giving Zeke more of the true running down work and letting him battering ram, Ramondre looks better.
he does.
He's also scored more fantasy points.
He does.
So I would
Yeah.
argue that like this is actually a good thing. I know it doesn't feel like a good thing, but because Ramondre's losing work, but he's much more efficient with the work he's getting, and he looks faster, and he looks happier, and I'd rather have the pass catching anyway. But yeah, in the last couple weeks, Ramondre has managed to get up off his deathbed and actually put up some kind of usable fantasy production when he was putting up 4s and 2s and crap when
Mhm.
they were trying to have him do everything. Clearly that wasn't working. So this is actually helping. It's weird. It's one of those weird addition by subtraction things. It doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense to all of the time, but it is very accurate that Ramondre is actually doing better with less work to do. His efficiency per touch has gone up dramatically since they've started giving Zeke the crappy battering ram carries, the 11 to 12, just like, yeah, just get in there, fat boy. Run straight up the middle. Yeah, like I have any room to call anybody fat. But yeah, like just battering ram in there, man. Don't Is there a hole? No, just make one then. Just go. Like, just put your gut into it, because this is your job, buddy. Like, I hate to tell you, this is the end of your career. Welcome to it. Like,
Yeah.
and by the way, you should be grateful, because the alternative is selling cars in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Like, that's what we're doing. Like,
Yeah, so I mean, it's not one that gets you excited, but it is something that is out there. And I mean, if you have Ramondre Stevenson, you should at least consider rosting Zeke, you know,
it's funny. I go the
especially
other
with,
way with that. I go the other
yeah.
way with that. I don't really. If I have Ramon, I don't want both.
Hmm.
I'm happy to have one or the other as a backup of some variety. In the case of Zeke, don't really want both. Mostly because what if we just got done looking at? Do you think if Ramondre went down, the reason to have both would be, do you think if Ramondre went down that Zeke would be able to carry that whole load and be efficient and get points with it if they
I
made
definitely
Zeke do
think
everything?
his load would grow. I don't know
I
that
know
they
he would get
wouldn't.
more, but my question is, what would he
Yeah,
do with more? Would more even be effective?
he might
And
fall
that's
in
where
the
I'm
end
like, I
zone.
don't know that I care about this. I realize that what I just asked you is speculation,
Hmm.
but that's kind of the decision you're making.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, I don't know that I want to spend 2 roster spots on this. It would
Yeah.
depend on what my other running backs are. I'll tell you that much right now.
No, that's true. But and then to wrap that up, Deontay Foreman,
Oh
everyone's
yeah,
kind
thank
of,
you for reminding me.
yeah, everyone
That's a
kind
good
of
one.
forgot about him. I'm not seeing anyone anywhere talk about him, but
I
yet
think
was
his
he not
rostership
the
percentage might be incredibly high in the background because
really?
people know who Donta Foreman is. I'd have to look this
Okay.
up. You got to bear with
Okay.
me while I look that up. But keep going,
No,
because
that
you're
would
not
make
wrong about
sense
any of
because
it.
I'm like I'm not seeing him anywhere on the
No,
waiver,
he's
and
at
I can't
41%.
imagine 41.
Yeah,
Yeah. I didn't
41.
think he was like incredibly because it wasn't like a oh my god, Deontay Foreman's gonna be starting. It was just kind of a oh yeah,
Yeah,
Bears
I'm not
running
sure
back again.
why that is the way that it is.
Yeah. It's like
Well,
no
okay, I'll tell you
one
this right now. Yeah,
I guess you know
damn
what?
near the he'd be damn near the top of that list.
I put him right
He'd be
under
way up
Darrell
there.
Henderson.
The problem is that the problem is Roshan coming back,
There's a
and then
shelf
now he
life
has
on
to
it.
split, and then now he has to split a little bit with Roshan. But to be honest with you,
Yeah.
watch that whole Bears game. Bears looked better. They were okay. They were clearly running their base offense because they
Hmm.
got their backup quarterback and their backup like third string running back in there that hasn't really played since like preseason.
Yeah.
That's why they were running the base offense. They were not doing anything fancy. Literally just running the base offense. It was better and more efficient than the actual offense they like to run. It actually that team with Bajent and Foreman, featuring Foreman just battering ramming it up the middle and then throwing dump offs to him and then occasionally throwing it to the wide receivers and just 3-step drop ball out. 3-step drop ball out. Just make that the offense. Why I was screaming at my television like the whole morning. It's so frustrating that it's like, why isn't this just the offense? This is more efficient than what you were doing. Like,
Hmm.
just run 4-letter word football that starts with F. Like, just run the ball with Foreman. This isn't hard. I know that they were playing the Raiders and the Raiders are trash. I hear me out though. Like,
Hmm.
establish the running game. 3-step drop ball out. 3-step drop ball out. 3-step drop. Don't no crazy motions. None of this like 5-step drop play action crap that you don't know how to do. 3-step drop ball out. It's what the 49ers do. You run the ball and 3-step drop ball out. Like that ball leaves your hand. Like you hit your back foot ball. And I'm like, this was incredibly effective. And I'm watching it and I'm just like, this is how you take pressure off your terrible offensive line so they don't have to block for you. It's how you prevent your quarterback from getting murdered, which you've been struggling with. And you just
Hmm.
let Deonta Foreman pound people because I like Foreman fine, but let's be honest about his situation. He's disposable. He's
He's
a
your
running
third
back.
running back.
He's a
You
third
got
running back in the
Herbert. You
NFL,
got
man. Like,
Johnson.
He's very disposable. Just let him do that job. Just let him pound away. And
Put
we've
some
seen him
miles
do
on
that.
it.
We've seen him do that on other teams, Carolina, Houston.
Yeah.
When he gets a lot of carries, he usually will bust something. He's pretty effective. So I was just really annoyed by the whole Bears game, just soup to nuts, where I'm like, why isn't this just the offense?
Yeah.
This should just be what we do. It plays into all your strengths and it covers up a lot of your weaknesses. Your weaknesses being Matt Eberflus and the O line and the defense, especially the defensive line. Did I mention Matt Eberflus? Also, Matt Eberflus. Really can't stress enough. And this is why it's not the offense, by the way. Matt Eberflus. And it's like, dude, there's no shame in just running a stripped out base offense when that's what your personnel can handle.
hmm
Again, I'll reference the 49ers. That's what they literally are doing. It's not that complicated of an offense.
No.
They have a couple different packages and formations and looks that are a little technical. But 90% of that offense is
Run the
three-step
damn
drop,
ball.
ball out, ball.
Yeah.
Just go fast. And they have a good O-line.
hmm
So that helps. But I'm just trying to, it was just really infuriating to watch how that game was working when you've been watching the other games and it's like, oh, look, here comes Fields, going to dance around in the pocket for 3 years with his legs, trying to extend the play, run out of the pocket, throw a pick, throw it out, but you get hit. Dude, if it's not there, I was really impressed with Bajent. Bajent's not like a fantasy thing, by the way, but I
No.
was impressed with Bajent's decision making, where
hmm
it's like he's not a fantasy thing. He's not even Brock Purdy, but it's like if it's not there, throw it away. Just throw it away. Just don't. And he's fast enough that if he wanted to run, he could run a little bit. He's not like Fields fast. He's fast enough to get out of trouble, but he wasn't like that. You could tell that wasn't the thought process. The thought process was, okay, ball, read one, read two, nothing there, out of the end zone. Or way over his head, like something. And I'm like, that's really all I need you to do. And then we'll go to the next down. And fun fact, if you're averaging like 4 yards a carry, which is what Foreman was doing, it makes this very easy. Anyway, what do I know? I've just been doing this for a long time and stuff. I just had to go on my little PSA, my little rant there about the Bears game because it's highly triggering, that Bears game. But yes, I agree with you. He'd be near the top if Foreman was
hmm
still available. I'm not that sold on the whole. I get the Roshan is coming back thing, but
Yeah.
oh boy. Let's do what do you call it?
Guillotine.
Guillotine. Yeah. Eckler. The hell do you do with this? The hell do you do with that? You blowing your whole fab budget on Eckler, or are you going to let somebody else do it? Hope they get clipped, and then maybe he picks it up down the stretch when he's back on the waiver wire in another week. Keep in mind he's playing the Bears.
I'd go 45, and I would probably submit that and really not be upset if I lost that one.
Okay. It's kind of where I'm at with it. I know a lot of folks are like, oh, Eckler, just blow all your fab and wait. There are certain teams that I might recommend that to. Like
hmm
if I was utterly loaded and it didn't matter, then sure, because I can
hmm
afford to wait it out. You know what I mean? And I'll spend a little bit more. But if I'm competing and I need my money for the big blow up at the end, which is my usual strategy, yeah, I'm not really worried about it too much. I might just let somebody else deal with that headache. So, but he's the most polarizing one because nobody else really played bad enough to get
I
you
mean,
killed.
Josh Jacobs.
That is not in the top 10. So I was actually working my way there. I was kind of going
Yeah.
through the top 10 there, but we'll
Gotcha.
go to, well, there's one name before we get to Jacobs, and it's Bijan.
I don't even want to talk about Bijan.
I see
Oh,
someone lost some games. This is
yeah.
like your Bears rant. You want me to get here? I'll lay out for you. You go. You go
No, I
ahead.
mean
You have some uninterrupted mic
what
time.
was
No
he
nonsense.
questionable leading into the game?
No,
No.
no,
No.
he was
Okay.
not.
There you go. That's all you need to say. I
He
mean,
was not on the
if
injury report at any level.
yeah. No. And so isn't the NFL doing an investigation on that? Because it's like if you're going to put him as questionable
There's a
and then do
formal
that, fine.
investigation in process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's how it should be because
It's not going to help you
Um,
get your fantasy win back. I'm sorry, but
no, but I mean, it's one of those things where,
I want justice.
yeah, because it's like I saw a picture. Someone bet on, it was the first week. Aaron Rodgers, he had to go over half a yard. People bet on it, didn't work out.
They
Okay,
did that for Amon-Ra
whatever.
St. Brown the week he missed too.
They did that for Bijan Robinson this game.
Oh
They had
wow.
over half a yard. Like, I I'm not saying anymore, but
Uh,
you know what I'm saying. So
uh,
that's where I'm at with it, and oh, that, and yes, it did not
People
help my
wonder why I don't
fantasy
like
team.
Arthur Smith.
No,
People wonder why I have a big problem with Arthur Smith.
we can't have
Okay.
nice things because of Arthur Smith. Plain and
Yep.
simple. Oh man,
Yep. And yeah, all of those are facts. So not on the injury report. The league is investigating.
yeah.
Huge mess. I blame Arthur Smith because Arthur Smith apparently knew about it Saturday night.
He had, yeah. There.
So he was dumb enough to admit that on television. And I'm like, oh, good job. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So remind me to never hire you to be like my accountant or my lawyer or anything. Maybe you could paint my house. Nah, he wouldn't buy the right kind of primer. He'd have Kyle Pitts doing it. It's like this whole thing.
And then he'd
Uh,
have Johnny Smith take over halfway
yeah, halfway
through, and
through, yeah, it'd
then
be this.
he'd send
Uh,
Bijan out to take over, and then Bijan would not be healthy, so then
yeah,
Bijan
it's
wouldn't be doing anything, and Cordell Patterson would be doing nothing with
that
the
whole
amount. Yeah,
situation is a disaster.
yeah,
My greater point is, I would still pay up for Bijan. And if I was
yeah.
clipped because of Bijan, the Bijan situation in Guillotine, I'd be livid.
I would. Yeah.
I would be pretty upset. And I try not to get too upset about things like that because life is essentially chaos. You can't really control it. That would upset me
Mm,
pretty well to the core because also because if you look at Arthur Smith's face and I'd just be like, oh, like I have a really nice dartboard in my house and I might have to like print a picture off. Like,
dedicated.
yeah, like that. That's one of those. It's not on camera. I was just looking for it. But yeah, that whole situation's a mess. But I would put a nice bid down. I would rather put a nice bid down on Bijan
Hmm.
than I would Eckler. And I know that's like sacrilege to say because Eckler's been so good for so long, but I'm scared of what's going on with Eckler, man.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's just, them shaking the rust off, but ugh, do not like. And then Jacobs is the other one, which is just hugely frustrating to everyone involved. And that is another one that I have some kind of misgivings around for Guillotine because I just can't tolerate the crappy nature of it. And I just don't see the Raiders getting better.
Hmm.
But there are scenarios where you might be desperate at running back, but it's really bad. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not good. Uh, I mean, last year he rushed for 1,650 rushing yards. Obviously, set the set the bar for the league last year. We're 7 games in. He's got 118 attempts for 347 yards. It's 2.9 yards per carry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really bad. That's and they're trying to throw it to him more, but I just don't think. I just can't believe. I just don't know if the Raiders are going to get better.
No, they're going backwards. They're,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I'm very afraid of the Josh Jacobs thing in the background.
Mm.
Jonathan Taylor was a nice thing though. I doubt it's still available now because that's been the thing is where we're waiting for him to get unleashed as it were. And yeah, Taylor probably worth whatever you paid. So somebody won
Mm.
that lottery. If he's still available, I'm very much in on that. James Cook scores a touchdown to just flip me the bird. No real notes or analysis on that. That's just something that happened. Ramondre, we already talked about. I'm not going to go through that again. The other one that I have here is Alexander Madison. Not bidding. They're using Akers.
That's what
I
that was
just
the last name I was gonna throw out there. Is he every single time he got the ball, he looked a lot more exciting
I'm
than
more interested
Madison
in trying to
did.
waiver claim Cam Akers than I would be in, and that's still several weeks away, by the way. Although they are
Hmm.
playing they are playing Green Bay this week.
Yeah.
That's a great matchup for him. Oh my God, I didn't realize they're playing Green Bay this week. Okay, go see if Cam Akers is on the waiver wire. We can't everything. No, Madison's going the wrong way, man.
Yeah.
And Akers didn't look great, but there was a reason they kept sending him back out there.
Yeah. No, it looks like they're after I said last week, Madison can pretty much do nothing wrong and they'll still, you know, continue to feed him. They
So it's your fault.
finally
It's your
yeah,
fault then. Okay, I'm good. I'm
essentially.
glad we cleared
Essentially.
that up. Good. Okay. All right.
But they finally decided, okay, we traded for Akers for a reason. Let's actually use him. And between him, that one double pass they had to Ty Chandler, I mean,
That was
both of
ridiculous.
those two running backs look way more explosive
That was a
behind him
ridiculous play.
than Madison.
This is a
Yeah, it was.
ridiculous,
Yeah.
ridiculous play. Damian Pierce is also on this list for the wrong reasons. Although I will say this, we already mentioned it. Houston plays Carolina, so I'm not cutting Pierce. This is the get right game. It also makes me somewhat interested in Singletary as a 1 week rental.
Yeah.
Singletary didn't make the greater running back thing because I knew we were going to get to here eventually.
Hmm.
He is the thanks, Chuck. Um, but yeah, that's the only other thing that I have is uh Singletary is an interesting 1 week rental. If you need
Hmm.
a rental, that's not a bad one for 1 week, and then we see past that. Because he's not great, not
No.
great, but it is somewhat of an interesting rental. And then past that, it's all the stuff we already know about. Zach Moss is going down. Sorry, all the Zach Moss truther people. I'm waiting to see what happens with injury reports for Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard splits and how that's going to go. People keep trying to insist to me that AJ Dillon is good at football, and then they just refuse to actually watch AJ Dillon play football. Is my theory on that. Yeah, it's really all I got from there. That's likely between those two lists. I think we've probably given you an opinion on everybody. Anybody I missed, Lance? Anybody you want to call specific attention to?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, I think you brought up, well, since we did have a guy pretty much come off of his couch and produce at a decent level with Terrell Henderson this last week, I guess Leonard Fournette, I'm not putting a claim on him, but I'm at least monitoring the situation because I
I'm waiting
think,
to see where he ultimately gets signed.
yeah, because I mean
See,
that
my
he
theory on
could,
Leonard Fournette is that he's not healthy. That's my
yeah,
theory. I have a sneaking suspicion that everybody is just being too polite. But there's
hmm
a reason that they were willing to let him go. And then there's another reason why he got some workouts early and then never got signed. And then he got brought in again recently and left without a contract. So my theory is that Leonard Fournette has something broken
hmm
and he's not fully healthy. Like he's healthy enough to play technically, but nobody's really excited about this.
no,
So I'll be interested to see what happens next in the offseason with Leonard Fournette. But I don't even know if he's going to get signed. We're getting to that point where it's like if it doesn't happen in the next couple weeks, I don't
might
know.
not happen.
Yeah, I want to see
No.
where he gets signed before I start putting in waiver claims on it. Know about it. I agree, but
hmm
definitely don't waiver claim it.
No, no, it's definitely something to keep your finger on the pulse, but nothing more than that.
Yeah. So we're gonna go to wide receiver. I'm gonna try and go through this quick because there's some interesting names and there's a lot of trash. Number one is Josh Downs.
Hmm.
It's not close.
No.
Moving on. Go Google it. Google it if you care. Google it. But Josh Downs is number one. It's by a good margin. Number two is Tank Dell, and I feel like I shouldn't have to explain this because Tank
Bye
Dell should be
week.
over 50%, and the fact that he's not is stupid. What are you
Yeah.
people doing? Number three is Kendrick Bourne. The old, what I've been half jokingly saying, the only useful Patriot.
Oh yeah, and I
Um,
just want to correct something I said earlier. I think I said that Mac Jones played the Raiders. They actually played the Bills this week. I was
he
getting my
did.
weeks
Yeah,
mixed up, so my bad on that.
it's okay. Uh, that's the top three. Four, Jaden Reed, because we don't know what's going on with Watson. He might not be fully healthy, not looking like it at least.
Mm,
And every time that happens, Reed goes up. So Reed is interesting. It's something to know about. Uh, and then I have kind of a coin flip after that where it gets interesting. After that, those are the ones I feel strongly about. And then I'll give you a grip of names that you can order however you want after four. So anything past four is like there's some personal preference involved in this. Josh Reynolds, Rashid Shaheed, Wandale Robinson, and at some point Tannehill will be back. So just know that Treylon Burks has started practicing again. There's a reason Treylon Burks is last, by the way. It's the big four, a list of names, and then oh by the way, Treylon Burks has returned to practice.
yeah.
That is it. But I'm undeterred by the bad week from Wandale Robinson. That's not actually Wandale's fault from watching that game. Rashid Shaheed is something is a toy that I am constantly obsessed with, but I get that it's a headache and it's not everybody's cup of tea, which is why he's in that group. And that's also why that group was led by Josh Reynolds. So that's kind of where it is. So there's four I feel really good about, and then there's like some guys that you should probably know that they exist and that they're doing stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you think? How does that line up? We agree on Josh Downs, I'm sure, so we can just skip it. Like,
Yeah.
I
No,
can't imagine you have
definitely
anybody that isn't Josh Downs at one. I think that's like industry
no.
consensus.
No, that is just the knockout
Anyone
home run.
anyone blessed with the
Don't
gift
think
of
twice.
sight
Yeah.
would have him at number one. Like it's incredible.
No, absolutely. He's definitely wowed some people. I would
Turns out Reggie Wayne knows how to evaluate wide receivers. I don't know what the story is with that, but like it's like
yeah, it's
it's like he knows
almost like he
something.
played football before.
Yeah, for a
Um,
long time. For
I'm
a
just gonna
long
say it.
time. God
Do
almighty.
not, do not, and for the love of God, do not go after Julio Jones.
Oh
It,
yeah. Oh, I saw
it's
that over the weekend. Oh, that made me
too
laugh.
late.
Oh, it
Too
was so
late.
cute.
Like,
I know somebody who actually picked up and played Julio Jones.
oof.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh, it tickled me. Oh, that was great.
Wow. Yeah, that is just that's fool's gold right there.
A waste of time and money.
Yeah, it is. And I
You'll notice
mean,
how Julio Jones was nowhere near my list.
no,
Like,
and
not even close.
he's only on there because Quez Watkins is hurt, and he's essentially there to compete with
Yeah, I
her.
love getting fantasy
Um,
prospects that are my age.
yeah.
He's in a lot better shape than I am, but still, like,
Oh, yeah. But OBJ, I can't talk myself into getting excited about
I
that.
don't buy it.
Um, Michael Gallup, until the Cowboys actually have a game where their defense is not the only thing that looks amazing, I don't want it.
Michael Gallup in Dynasty, maybe.
Yeah, no, in
As your
Dynasty,
like
definitely.
seventh or eighth wide receiver in a
Yeah,
Dynasty league, maybe. Anything past that, no.
no.
Like, no.
Um, I know people are getting excited about Jamison Williams, but I still firmly believe Josh Reynolds has that number two job on lock. And I mean,
Another
he's got
couple weeks.
chemistry with Goff, so I'm going with Josh Reynolds for the foreseeable future. And until that changes, then I'll
Can't
reevaluate. But
imagine what your team would have to be to actually play Jameson Williams in your lineup.
yeah, it'd have to be a pretty deep league
You'd
for
have
you
to
to
have
be
like this
scraping the
insane
bottom of the barrel.
team. Yeah, you'd have to have this insane team where either you're just awful or your
Hmm.
team is incredible, but you're short one flex.
Oh yeah.
Some weird combination of something would have to happen like that. Yeah, I can't imagine any universe where he would be something you want.
No, not at all. Jalen Hyatt finally had 5 targets in a game. Only
He
caught 2 of
did.
them, and the thing to remember with that is he plays for the New York Giants, so that's the end of that discussion. So,
The only thing I like on the Giants is maybe Wandale
Wandale.
Robinson, maybe one day.
Hmm.
Wandale is interesting to me for a lot of reasons, but it's maddening to try to
Hmm.
deal with because of what you just mentioned. He plays for the Giants. Could you imagine if Wandale Robinson played for a good team? Like he'd be like doing Josh Downs stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like he's maybe not quite that level of player, but like he could be if he played for like a competent team, he'd be one of the premier slot players in the league.
No,
But
he
such is life.
definitely he's got upside. It's just a matter of getting
Health is also a concern with him. Is he
yeah,
actually healthy?
in a functioning
Um,
offense in front of him.
that would help. Not having the ball thrown to you by Tyrod Taylor would also help.
Or Daniel Jones or
Well, that's the O line.
yeah.
Also, not having Saquon. We've got all the data in the universe that directly tells you that when Saquon plays, Daniel Jones is borderline acceptable.
Hmm.
Sometimes more than borderline. He is acceptable. When Saquon Barkley is not out, Daniel Jones is one of the worst 5 quarterbacks in the league. So, and that's not new information. That's been that way forever. So, do you disagree with the top 3 that I kind of listed? Downs, Dell, Bourne, or is that also your top 3 there?
Yeah, Dell is only on the waiver wire because Houston just had a bye and someone was in a pinch. I mean, there were 6 teams on a
Folks,
bye. Someone
folks,
was in a
folks had to
pinch.
make some bad choices. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, Downs obviously speaks for itself, Dell, and then Bourne, I'd honestly probably put Josh Reynolds above Bourne.
I can't do it
And
only because Bourne has in the last 2 games, Bourne is rocking 18 targets in the last 2 games.
that's fine. I mean, he
That's
went
insane.
on a
That's
decent
ridiculous.
it is, but he also had an incredible uh few weeks last season, and then all of a sudden, boom, it was, Jacoby Myers, and it was this person. Bill Belichick hates fantasy football, and he some seemingly recently hates consistency with his wide receivers, and the New England offense scares me for what they've shown
Yeah.
this season. Like they can do really well and then they can turtle and it can get ugly fast, whereas the Lions, yeah, they only put up 6 points, but I'd rather have a player on an offense getting 6 points with Detroit than a player on an offense getting 6 points with New England.
Yeah,
I
but
feel the
Bourne's not getting
productions.
6 points is the problem. Bourne has got okay. Let's break this down real quick. Bourne over the last 2 weeks is averaging 9 targets. I hear what you're
Yeah.
saying about Belichick, and that's all like theory craft for the future. Reynolds has 6 targets in the last 2 weeks.
Mm,
So not averaging total. Total. So that's my point to you is Reynolds, I know that the Jameson Williams thing is not really working out that well, but just his presence is screwing up Reynolds. Just his existence on that team has thrown off the equilibrium as it relates to Reynolds. Otherwise, I would have Reynolds higher because
mm.
Reynolds before Williams came back, here's the targets for Reynolds: 7, 6, 6, 5. Since Reynolds has come back, or I did that backwards. Uh, the
Williams.
targets before Williams came back: 7, 6, 6, 5. Since Williams has been back, Reynolds has not had more than 3 targets in a game. That's the problem. So you're talking about a guy who is averaging 9 targets in the last 2 games, 11 and 7, and has turned that into double-digit points in PPR back-to-back weeks. There's no way he's rocking a 19 and a 16 compared to a 6 and a 6. So you're not comparing sixes. You're comparing 6 and double digits.
I'm talking about 6 points from the offense total, not from individual players.
Okay. Either way,
But
I don't
yeah,
care.
but
There's
my
no
thing
way that
is I trust the Detroit offense right now a lot more than I trust New England, and
I
that's
don't
kind of
care about the
that's
entire offense. I don't give one single crap if they only score 6 points the whole day in New England, and Detroit puts up a 40 every single week. I could care less. Does not matter as it relates to the conversation that we are having about Bourne v. Reynolds. Unless you're going to tell me that Reynolds is going to start putting up double digits as part of those 40s, which he has not been doing, that whole argument is irrelevant. It makes the actual performance of the team does not matter as it relates to this conversation. All that matters is I don't care that the Patriots lose their games and look like crap. They are peppering Bourne with targets, and I know why. Because Smith is out, and he's been bad all year. And then you've got Hunter Henry, who's been beat up, so he's taken some of that job, at least temporarily. And they're just running out of guys. They're running out of weapons. Nobody else has stepped up to fill that void. And Mac Jones, as much as I think he sucks, it doesn't matter. He's looking for Bourne, and he's throwing the ball 40 times a game. To that extent, I do care, I guess, a little bit about the actual game itself, but I don't care what I don't need Bourne to score touchdowns. You referenced Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers was borderline wide receiver 2 in fantasy on a year where he scored 0 touchdowns. In PPR.
no.
This argument does not work so well in non-PPR. I acknowledge that. But in PPR, which is what most people are playing, that's my point to you, is like Bourne probably should be higher than 3 on my list. He should probably be 2, given what he's actually done in the background over the last 2 weeks. But I have a hard time wanting to deal with it over Dell. That's my whole crux of this argument with Bourne versus, like, if Reynolds was doing more, I'd have him higher. But Reynolds is like, it's kind of fallen off since Williams has come back, and it's not really Reynolds' fault. It's just they're going to let the first round draft pick try and get out there and do stuff. It's the nature of how football works, unfortunately, even though it hasn't really paid off yet. They got to get something else going. Otherwise, you're probably going to get Amon-Ra St. Brown killed, because as much as I love Amon-Ra and roster him in a million leagues, and I love the fact that he gets 19 targets, but you can't really give Amon-Ra St. Brown 19 targets a game and expect him to finish the season. Feel like that's going to go bad. So does that sort of help add context to why I have Bourne where I have him?
It does. Yeah. No, I
highly doubt I'm going to convince you, but I want to at least provide context to that idea in the background.
Yeah. No, I get that. I just, for me, I need to see it a little bit more from New England before I,
It's a
at
weird take when
least
you're talking about picking up Mac Jones, man. It's a really weird take. A take
from their receivers, because their receivers feel like it's 1 week Kendrick Bourne, and then it's Hunter Henry, and then it's, someone else is kind of my thing. So the production can be there and it can be in the teens for the quarterback, but when it comes to who's on the receiving end of that, that's where it starts to get a little hairy for me.
All right.
So
all right. So then let's do real quick, because wide receiver is always weird with this on what's on Guillotine, because like if Keenan Allen somehow is out there, yeah, go ahead and spend a good amount on that. Like I'd break some rules and go pretty high with that. Cooper Kupp, same story. If
Mhm.
somebody got chopped with Cooper Kupp, yeah, pay up for that. That's a bump in the road. That's nothing more than that. Devonta Adams is starting to scare me. I would put in a limp-wristed, way lowball bid just to satisfy the voice in my brain that insists on bidding on such things, knowing that I would lose. And just that way, if I did lose, I'd be like, well, at least I tried. Uh, got Thielen coming back. I hate
Amari
Bucks.
Cooper.
Do not want at a high price. That has less to do with Amari Cooper and more to do with I don't know who's playing quarterback for that team right now. And if it's PJ Walker, I'm good. I'm straight. So I'll tell you what, I'll put $5 on it if I need a wide receiver. Devonta Smith is the other one that I'm not real happy with because it's just not the way the offense is working this year so far. Of course, he'll have a huge second half just because I've been talking some crap. Uh, yeah, it's just it gets tough, and so you're kind of looking at things like that might be available that are Amari Cooper is probably the most real one.
Calvin Ridley too, but that
I
I
don't
just
want Calvin
yeah.
Ridley. That can
Yeah.
be somebody else's problem. If T Higgins is out there, I am interested in that
Hmm.
because you're getting it at like the lowest price ever for T Higgins. Like it's like free real estate. So I'm interested in that if that's still out there. And possibly Deontay Johnson if he was available. Could talk myself into that because I bet it would be cheap. What do you do with Romeo Dobbs? I don't know what to do with it. I'm fortunate I don't have any Romeo Dobbs shares. I'm not gonna lie because I didn't want it in the offseason. It's somebody else's problem, not mine.
You know, I don't know what to think of the Green Bay offense right now. They're
They need Aaron Jones back, is what I think. I'll say that. I do know what I think, which is they need Aaron Jones back in like the worst.
back at
Healthy, real Aaron
100%.
Jones would
Yeah,
really
not
help.
the
Yeah.
whatever they threw on the field the other day
30,
cuz that
35 to 50% Jones that played over the weekend,
yeah, I mean, real Aaron Jones against that
aka
Denver
crap.
defense, you would have just lit him
Put
up,
up
so
put up a 20. Would have been.
oh, easily, yeah, at
Yeah.
minimum. So, you know, I'd still hold on to Dobbs. I wouldn't drop him if he's out there. I wouldn't be overly eager to get him, but if you have a need, I think it's at least worth considering. But um, I think there's at least reason to kind of question where the Green Bay offense is at right now.
Yeah.
Um, because he's kind of sputtering ever since Christian Watson came back, and it's ugly, you
Yeah,
know.
and then Michael Thomas is the other one that is kind of in that mode. It's been better than Dobbs, but it's like Thomas is kind of like needs to score a touchdown, otherwise that could get ugly. So it makes me hard. It makes me not want to really commit to it. It really makes it hard to want to commit to anything that isn't Alvin Kamara on that team.
Mhm.
And the only other ones that I have are the Denver guys because those are the ones that you got to watch here for the next couple weeks. Sutton has been really nice. Has been really nice this year. It's nice to see him return to form after the injuries.
Oh yeah.
So it's a nice little feel good story there, and he's been pretty effective. So you like that. What would be annoying is if he suddenly winds up on another team. That would actually be really deeply annoying. And then the other one is Judy, which would actually
I feel
probably
he's gonna
maybe
be the
be
one
better.
to
I think that would
yeah.
maybe be better if he was on a different team. So that's the one you got to watch. But it's just a question if anybody's going to want to make a real firm offer on that Denver would accept.
Mhm.
And all right, let's do tight end real quick, and then we're gonna get out of here for the evening. We've done it with the. I don't want to jinx it, but the internet has stayed on at Lance's house. We did it. We got the whole way through. We just got to get through tight end here. Things that are available. Jake Ferguson dropped in a lot of leagues because of the bye. He's been streaming tight end radar all year. So he's up there. Dalton Kincaid. Dawson Knox is going to have wrist surgery. So he's going to be out for not season, but a while. So Kincaid becomes interesting. Logan Thomas, for as long as he can stay healthy.
Might
And then
not be
Taysom,
long.
which you never know, right? Could be anything. Jonnu Smith, talking about it for a while. He still has some level of value. And then Taysom Hill. We already had that conversation at the beginning of the show, so I'm not going to rehash the whole thing. And then after that, it gets pretty ugly. There's only the other two names are the rookies that you should keep an eye on, Michael Mayer and Luke Musgrave. But I wouldn't really I'm not going out of my way for any of that. The things that I like more is Ferguson largely Ferguson wouldn't even be a thing if he didn't play for Dallas. That's just their system. Kincaid gets the uptick because they were already using him a little bit anyway, and now Knox is out of the way. So they got to do something about that. And then Logan Thomas has just been, I know he had a bad week sandwiched in there, but he's had two pretty nice weeks. One really good week, one pretty good week last weekend, and then he had one clunker in there. But enjoy Logan Thomas while you have him because it likely won't be for very long. And then, Taysom Hill from the beginning of the show, total gadget guy. He's been getting more work. They're actually using him as a real tight end more. Really wild. And then, Jonnu Smith. It's all the standard names that we've been talking about, basically. Tight end is just such a crap position. So, anybody that you want to talk about there?
No, I mean, Michael Mayer doesn't look like he did much in the game, but his snap share has improved week to week.
I wish they had a
And
real quarterback that actually did stuff.
yeah, that would always help, but
It would really
he
help me get
does
excited
have
about this. Really help me get excited about it because
the Lions and the Jets, are good matchups against tight ends, so hopefully he can kind of bounce back. Then Kincaid's someone who excites me. I mean, I was excited when they drafted him, and then they've continued to just kind of, have him and Knox kind of vulture each other's value. So I think Kincaid could have some good games here, but the thing with that is you got to question, well, outside of Diggs, is anyone able to really flourish in this offense? And, to an extent, yes, but how much is kind of the question. Taysom Hill, yeah. Taysom Hill's tough. I mean, if you're hoping for a breakout game by Taysom, or not a breakout game, but a boom from Taysom Hill, you're definitely in dire straits. And after that, Jonnu Smith, Logan Thomas, Jake Ferguson, you're throwing darts.
Ferguson has a really good matchup if you're looking for a 1 week guy. So does Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
Those are guys that have really nice matchups in the background. So, all right, it's pretty much the car wash of crappy names. God, tight end is such a disaster. As far as things like Kelsey's not going to be available, Andrews isn't going to be available, Hawkins is not going to be available, Laporta's not going to be available, Kittle won't be available after next week. Basically, it's not until you get to Pitts. I'm starting to warm up to that idea that maybe I'd be willing to put a very low level bid on Pitts if I absolutely needed something. His usage has been going up, but it's still scary.
Yeah.
Still very scary. So I don't fully recommend it. The one that kind of leaps off the page is Dalton Schultz, because Schultz is interesting theoretically for Guillotine, but the question that will be is, was his increased usage coming from the idea that Tank Dell had a concussion? I don't know. I don't think anyone does. That's the problem. Is it that Dalton Schultz is getting more involved in the offense and they're looking for him more? Or is it that they've been dealing with injuries and Schultz has just been on the field? I don't know. I will tell you that they are playing Carolina this week. So there's that.
Always helps.
Always helps. And then beyond that, yeah, there's like nothing that I really want to call out past Dalton Schultz. We already kind of covered it in the waiver wire thing.
Mm.
So there's nobody that I'm like really pounding the table for. Tight end is a mess. I could make the argument for basically, and I do often make the argument that tight end as a position should just be folded into a position that I'm created called pass catcher. And it's wide receiver and tight end because the only tight end that actually matters is Kelsey. Because Kelsey would be a top 10 wide receiver and no one else would probably even be. No, I think Mark Andrews might crack the top 40. And that's why that position is dumb. Because it's just dumb. There's one tight end you really want. I would argue that there's maybe 4 tight ends that actually merit discussing past that to a much lower level. Like they can't even get 9. Like there's what, 8 quality-ish tight ends in the entire league. Ones that you'd at least feel like some kind of way about.
Yeah.
You struggle to get to 10. 12 is right out. 12 is not a thing. Like that's what I'm saying. Like this whole position is just dumb. Anyway, that really only matters for us fantasy folks. I know in the real NFL they don't think that way. But is there anybody you want to talk about pound the table for tight end related? Because I'm over it, my friend. I'm done talking about tight end. I got nothing.
Yeah, I would just come back to Dalton Kincaid. I think he's got, some upside. It's just a matter of how much is that really going to be. And, the state of the Bills offense right now is kind of, so.
Yeah, it's the Bills team in general. Their O-line's not playing very well. Allen looks like he's kind of dealing with some injuries. That's not bad enough to stop him from playing, but it's definitely affecting him.
Right.
Their secondary on the other side of the ball is not playing well, and a lot of them are hurt. Like hurt bad enough as in they're missing guys, and the ones they have left are starting to get beat up. So you got a lot of issues like that going on in Buffalo where the Bills are starting to kind of like show some weaknesses because they're just dealing with a lot of crap right now. And they're not playing like the capital letter Bills from last year. They're mortal right now. They're a mortal team. So it's you consider Diggs is going to get his. Everything else is a debate. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. They need a slot on that team, a real slot that would really help them tremendously. So maybe that'll be Kincaid. Like, remember when they had Cole Beasley? Like, right at the end of Beasley's career before he hit the wall and got old? I mean, everybody laughs, but Beasley had like that. He had like a 900-yard season.
He was solid, yeah.
And it's like,
can't
in
take that away
PPR,
from
he
him.
was a monster. And it's like that team worked really well when they had Diggs and something to take the pressure off Diggs. Because eventually what would happen is they'd double cover Diggs the whole game and they'd finally have to rotate somebody off because Beasley was just killing them. And then it's like, okay, we got to do something. And then Diggs just starts killing you. He's one-on-one again. And it's like, yeah, this is bad. Like, you can't really do much against this. You're constantly juggling. Allen was younger at that point too, and he was still running the ball more. But there's something not quite right. And I think it has to do with injuries in their secondary and injuries on the other side of the ball and injuries on the O-line. And it's like, they're just not fully gelling at the moment. So we'll have to see what happens as that team moves forward. They're still a playoff team, but I don't even know if they're the best team in the division anymore.
No, Miami.
Are they better than Miami? Because I'm not sure. I don't think they are. At least not recently.
If they had to play 3 times, I feel like Miami's going to win too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
If we took the current rosters, you're playing 3 games in a row, like with what? We'll give them 3 or 4 days in between. try and get. I agree with that. I think Miami would win 2 of the 3.
Neutral playing field.
Yeah.
None
We're
of
gonna
this
play. We're gonna play like in Kansas.
snow in
Yeah, no, we're gonna play like
Buffalo and then absurd heat in Miami.
no.
Just
We're gonna
neutral
play
playing
like we're,
field.
we're gonna play like in a dome.
Yeah.
Like we'll play inside in a dome. We'll play in Indianapolis. We'll play like at I don't know if they still call it the RCA Dome, but we're gonna go with that
Mhm.
for the purposes of this conversation because that's what my old self remembers. They'll play at RCA in the I can't imagine they still call it RCA.
Yeah.
But yeah, they'll play in the dome in Indy for the purpose of this neutral site. Easy for both teams to get to. It's a
Mhm.
flight from Florida to Indy, Buffalo to Indy. It's not that far. I agree. I think the Dolphins would win 2 out of 3 of those games, and I think one of them would be an embarrassment.
Yeah.
I think one of those games they'd blow them out. Given
No,
how
I
their
don't.
secondary's
Yeah.
playing right now, there's one game where Tyreek Hill would have like 150 yards and probably scores twice.
Yeah.
And that's accounting for the
And
idea that Waddle's beat up on the other side of that. They're dealing with their own injuries.
mhm.
They got their own problems. That team's not perfect right now either. They're just handling it better. But
Right.
all right, well, Lance, pleasure as always. Glad the Wi-Fi stayed on. Hope it stopped raining over there. Glad
It's
it's
still out there. I got a little nervous halfway through. I saw a
all
big
right.
clap of lightning, and
All
it
right.
was
Well,
just.
hey, I'd rather deal with that than snow because you and I both know what we're in store for. Both of us are about to go into winter, and I'm not looking forward to that shit.
All kinds of fun.
So yeah, no, I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But we'll do. I'll talk to you here next week. I'll catch up with you on Tuesday. As always, at Lancer 0x13. We're on the Discord. You can join the Discord right there. The link is in the show notes. Sign up for us. Keep the nerd company. Ask us all your questions, all that fun stuff. Roster resolution. Let us know if you're interested. There's a little bit of a waiting list, but $5, we'll go through your whole team, your whole league. We'll make trade recommendations, blah, blah, blah. We'll do a custom. It's a video. It's a custom video for you about your team, for your league. People like it. So yeah, we'll do that. And then otherwise, yeah, keep up the nonsense and we'll see you on Tuesday to get you ready for week 9.